very long wrestling weekend has concluded, and I am here on the show today to discuss my reactions to the hours upon hours upon hours of wrestling I watched in the past several days. What's good, Internet? My name is Attack Slug. It's Monday. WrestleMania weekend is over, but obviously Raw tonight, SmackDown tomorrow. But let's discuss the previous 3 days of shows that I watched here today on this show. I have notes. I have a lot of notes here. Anyway, TakeOver, which was Friday night, seems to be the end of the NXT career for Aleister Black and Ricochet. So I would imagine they would be in that Superstar shakeup, which is going to be pretty soon. So the question is, do they stay as a tag team, or are they going to be on different brands, or on the same brand but as singles? Like, many questions about Ricochet and Black, but definitely the whole bowing thing at the end of the match after losing to the War Raiders in that excellent tag team title match. I would say they're done on NXT, which is fine. Like, they've been the ones who've actually been used halfway decently among everyone else who's been called up in that big batch of call-ups in the past, 2 months. So, that's fine. But, moving on, Matt Riddle is so good, so fast. The king of the bros, man. I am constantly impressed with Matt Riddle, and that dude has a huge upside in this business, and hopefully they treat him right, unlike a lot of their eventual NXT call-ups not being treated particularly right. But speaking of, we finally have confirmation on Kushida that he is signed. He's going to go to NXT, and I don't have any concerns about Kushida on NXT. They tend to treat their international talent right, but the eventual possible main roster call-up for Kushida, based on their history of Japanese talent lately, is not going to be, I'm not looking forward to that. But, hey, much like Nakamura, kind of in the later years of his career, and not having to work that New Japan strong style, and honestly, he kind of did just about everything he could do in the juniors division in New Japan. They wouldn't make him a heavyweight, so he kind of had to, you know what, I'm going to go. I'm going to secure that bag, going to get paid the big dollars in WWE. So, congrats to Kushida. Looking forward to seeing more of his matches. Hell of a talent. But speaking of hell of a talent, Walter, Pete Dunne, the historic reign is over. The 2-year reign for Pete Dunne as NXT UK champion is over. And you're, on one hand, you're kind of sad to see it go. On the other hand, Walter. Good God, the big bruising hoss of Walter is always impressive. And the main event where you had to crown a new NXT champion because of the injury to Ciampa, and your new champion is Johnny Wrestling. And a lot of folks are saying how this was the best match they'd ever had on NXT or WWE. And, at a certain point, for me, my disbelief was starting to kind of alright. You've thrown literally everything in the kitchen sink at Gargano. He keeps kicking out. I don't know what you would have to do at that point in that match to actually pin him in any real capacity. Just that third fall. There were so many false finishes that I was just worn out. To be fair, great match. But at a certain point, I'm alright, come on. Just, that would have ended him. That would have ended anybody else, and he kept kicking out. But still, congrats. And unfortunately, not quite ending the story between Gargano and Ciampa the way people would have wanted it to end. And I could see the argument that, well, the fact that, you had Ciampa out at the end to hug Gargano even after they've been through all that stuff in the past couple of months is kind of, breaking the fourth wall, breaking the kayfabe a little bit, or a lot of it. But again, look, that's the best you could do with the circumstances you were given for that situation. You're just going to be perhaps months, maybe even a year and a half, if we ever get Ciampa back from a serious neck surgery. So you got to have some kind of a cap onto that story somehow, some way, and that was how they ended up doing that. So what does that mean for Adam Cole? Is he going to keep challenging for that belt now? Possibly. Now, certainly with Raw tonight, there's going to be a lot of concern and questions about who's getting called up from NXT, because that's kind of what they usually do for Raw and SmackDown after WrestleMania. And my thing is, hey, you aren't really using the guys you just called up and the girls you just called up in the past 2 rounds of call-ups very well. So how much more can you decimate your NXT roster and remove even more talent from NXT? Like, at a certain point, that affects the match quality on NXT. So maybe use the people that you already called up and put them in stories and put them in better angles and matches and that kind of thing first before calling up even more, just for that pop of the, hey, here's a fresh face. And believe me, I get it. WrestleMania, like that Raw after Mania, you have that crowd is going to pop huge for anybody they know from NXT. Like that happens the past couple of years, every year. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, maybe don't do that this year. Maybe just actually build better stories on that Raw after Mania this year. But again, that's tonight. We'll see how that plays out. And all of that good stuff. Now then, I did want to discuss briefly some stuff from the Hall of Fame before moving into the G1 Supercard, which happened at the same time. So I didn't watch all of the Hall of Fame. And honestly, those speeches tend to go a bit long. And, you know, they're okay, but it can be tedious. These old-timers like to talk and talk and talk. I get it. As someone who talks and talks and talks, I get it, right? So, things to discuss, though, importantly from the Hall of Fame. Number 1, the absolute scumbag who attacked Bret Hart during the induction for the Hart Foundation. What the hell, man? What the hell? Now, number 1, this was the first year, and I would assume the last year, they have the ring in the middle of the arena set up to do the Hall of Fame stuff. There's usually a stage for the Hall of Fame, and therefore you have better security with a stage. You can't just climb a stage, that wouldn't work too well, to attack somebody. Whereas when you're surrounded by, you know, the fans in the arena, and yeah, somebody just slipped in there and tackled Bret Hart, and that was super not great. And then just immediately got mobbed. Like, here, how crazy, how insane do you have to be to attack a legendary Hall of Famer surrounded by wrestlers? How stupid do you have to be? How out of your absolute mind do you have to be to even want to attempt that? And if you go and look at the guy's Twitter, I wouldn't say you should, but if you did, he's clearly not all there. Like, definitely got some issues and all that stuff. So, thankfully, Bret was fine. But, man, just really put a dour note on that whole thing and was very unfortunate. Otherwise, we had Triple H taking multiple shots at AEW and those guys and the too sweet whoop whoop. Like, and it's funny to me for a couple of reasons. Number 1, don't take it that serious, right? Just don't take it that serious. It's wrestling. And I'm sure AEW was thrilled to have their name be chanted at the Hall of Fame event, which is really funny. I think that it's interesting to see them actually taking shots at AEW because of the fact that the only reason that the Hall of Fame was on Saturday was because they moved NXT to Friday to not be running at the same time as the G1 Supercard with Ring of Honor and New Japan. And when that move happened, AEW had not even been formed yet. So they were under the assumption that Omega and Cody and the Bucks would have been at G1 Supercard. Obviously, they were not. So you can play it off all you want as we're not concerned, we're not scared, etc., but you moved your show from a Saturday to Friday. You clearly feel some kind of way about them working the world's most famous arena, etc., etc. So, you know, that was a thing. But yeah, otherwise, don't take it too serious. Like, it's wrestling, you take pot shots at other companies. You can make the argument that, hey, because they are the biggest dog in the room, don't even acknowledge any competition. But it's Triple H, that he tends to do that kind of stuff, break that fourth wall a little bit. Just, you know, they were having fun. And also, very nice to see China finally be inducted into the Hall of Fame. That was very nice to see. Bitter end to Walter. Is that enough? Here in the game it is. On Friday, it was not. Now, on the flip side of this whole thing, we had the G1 Supercard running in the world's most famous arena. I was watching that, because that is a historic event to watch. And as usual, I feel like when they run these co-branded deals that the stuff from New Japan ends up looking really good, and the Ring of Honor stuff, not so much. And that was kind of the case here. I was super happy, though, in the Garden to see guys like Suzuki, guys like Liger, and guys like the Great Muta was in that Royal Rumble type match, and that's crazy. So super happy for those guys to have their moment in the Garden. That's really cool for them. I really enjoyed Cobb and Ospreay. Was a fantastic match, quite enjoyable. I was a little bit confused that they apparently signed Angelina Love and Velvet Sky to Ring of Honor, and like I was definitely not very impressed by their Women of Honor division, and what they showed off in that match was kind of meh, not great. Felt super bad for my boy Mega Ran, friend of mine. Like, I get it. It's wrestling. As wrestling fans, you don't want to see a musical performance. I don't care who it is. I don't care who you like. You're there to watch wrestling. You're not there to watch music. And Mega Ran is obviously a huge wrestling fan, so he would know that. But going out there and hearing the boos from a sold-out arena, and then here comes Bully Ray. Bully Ray, who's a heel, they're cheering him to just beat up Mega Ran, and I'm like, man, I felt bad. I felt bad, but, you know, it's part of the show. And then that turned into a six-man hardcore, just garbage thing, and that was kind of whatever. It was nice to see. It was nice to see Flip back, looking just super jacked, and that was a good time. So there was a absolutely insane three-way for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. And one of the craziest and damnedest things I've ever seen in my life was a fall-away slam from the second rope, or no, the top rope, moonsault. So he had not one, but two guys, fall-away slam, backflip. I'm like, what are you doing? Holy crap. That was insane. That was just an absolutely, like, that match could have used more time. Those guys all killed it. Again, New Japan killing it. Ring of Honor, not so much. But we had a tag team match. It was like a four-way tag team match, and two things there are notable in that tag team match. Number one, PCO taking bumps at 51 that people half his age or anybody should not take. A powerbomb from the inside to the outside. No table, nothing to break his fall. Just to the mat. From the inside to the outside, powerbomb, PCO. I get it, his gimmick is he's not human. But good God, that was perhaps the sickest bump I saw all weekend, was that bump. And that dude's 51. Like, what the hell? But the larger story is after the match. The fact that Enzo and Cass, and we thought, well, number one, it was a very poorly timed bit of business, considering what happened to Bret Hart, like, half an hour earlier. So that was just really bad in poor taste timing, but they did it anyway. But they played it up as being real, right? Because we know Enzo, for real, that whole thing at a WWE pay-per-view months ago. So he has a history, right? And the way Ring of Honor handled it was by not showing it. You could kind of see off the corner of the screen, kind of saw it. And, but the fact that security didn't immediately go after Enzo and Cass, the fact that Bully Ray was kind of just beating him up a little bit, and then just the commentary not acknowledging it at all. You hear the crowd chanting F you Enzo, and then obviously later on, number one, Ring of Honor retweeted a video of that incident, which you wouldn't if that was, real. And number two, there was a video on Twitter of them actually coming out from the back, from like the side entrance to kind of go. So they weren't there the whole time. They didn't buy seats like he did at the last show where he invaded. So, Kota Ibushi, what are you doing? So, clearly, Ring of Honor is doing a thing with Enzo and Cass. I have to wonder, did they tell New Japan that they were going to do that? That seemed unclear. But that obviously, once again, got Enzo trending, which that was the whole point, is to get him trending, is to pretend it was real, even though you actually had the whole thing set up. Now then, Ibushi, your new IWGP IC champion after beating Naito, and man, the necks in that match the next. Good God, the next. But now this is the kind of thing that now that Ibushi has signed full-time with New Japan, they're going to put a belt on him to keep him happy and keep him putting these amazing matches on. Because obviously he's been freelance for so long. And usually you spend that long being freelance, they're not going to put a belt on you. But he's full-time now, so here's your IC title, which frees up Naito to go after the IWGP title at the Dome in January. Fingers crossed. But there was that. The new Ring of Honor champ, Matt Taven. Obviously I was totally behind Marty there, but I feel like at this point Marty is just kind of waiting for his deal to be up so he can go join his friends in AEW. We shall see. But speaking of the IWGP Heavyweight title, the Reign, man, just knees up on every one of these Phoenix Splashes. Good God. The next. Well, actually, guys, Okada is champion once again. The reign of Jay White, the Switchblade, is over. So one has to wonder just how much Omega leaving kind of has their plans messed up, and the safe bet is to put the belt back on Okada. Obviously, you weren't going to leave it on the Ace long term because he's getting up there in years, but Okada is the safe bet. Put the belt back on him, and there you go. And that's fine, but you thought, all right, Omega leaves, let's run with Jay White for a little bit. But again, the rumor had been that it was going to originally be Omega and Okada in the Garden, with Okada getting the belt back in the Garden. So regardless, Okada got the belt back in the Garden. Didn't matter who his opponent was. Destino! And that was your G1, a Supercard. Again, great matches on there. The stuff from Ring of Honor, perhaps not so much. And that brings us to your 7.5 hour show. A full day of work yesterday watching WrestleMania, the grandest stage of them all. The showcase of the Immortals, WrestleMania. And apparently this guy who made this set got the ring post wrong, but whatever. I'm already a half hour deep in recording this, so I'm not going to go back and get it fixed now. So, the most shocking thing on Mania was the fact that so many titles changed hands. Only 2 defenses that were actually successful on Mania, and that was the Usos and Joe. And Joe, I thought, was a foregone conclusion because of the injury to Mysterio, so that was a total squash match. But, the Hawkins streak is over. The Hawkins losing streak is over. How much of this do you think was Vince McMahon just being mad that the Revival asked for their release? And you go, oh no, calm down guys. We're going to give you those tag team titles. Just relax. Just stay happy. Stay here. Don't go to AEW. Don't sit home like Neville. Just keep working. You're a great tag team. And then, oh, here's Kurt Hawkins to totally squash you and his losing streak. Because that was kind of the ace in the hole, right? For the longest time, is that whoever that Hawkins beats is just going to get buried so hard because he lost for so long. So congrats to Kurt Hawkins. Congrats to Zack Ryder once again winning a belt at WrestleMania, even if it was on the pre-show. Now, as usual, the Battle Royals were kind of meh, right? But I did watch them in VR, and that was cool. It was weird because the ring posts were normal, and usually those VR cameras go on the big ring posts. And it was funny watching the men's Battle Royal. During that match, one of the cameras went from here, because the ring had so many guys in it, it was was not very sturdy. Anyway, you open the show with Brock Lesnar, because Brock is not happy that he's not in the actual main event of the evening, even though they call multiple matches main events in wrestling, but that's besides the point. I'm not sure if Paul Heyman was alluding to AEW or UFC when he mentioned, oh, Brock's gonna not be here, he's gonna go to Vegas, where he's appreciated. And I'm like, which of those two is it? I don't know. Is it both? Either way, Seth was the first of several triumphant victories on this show. And I honestly thought they had so many stories that could have ended with the heroes win at the end that they wouldn't do them all. And they did them all. So perhaps this whole thing of them actually listening to fans and we're the authority now is finally working. Because generally, the people who you wanted to see win won at WrestleMania. And that's awesome. Shane and Miz had their big spot off of a camera crane thing and fell into a bunch of boxes, and that was fine. I was shocked that Shane won, and it was kind of, an accidental win because he was just laying on Miz from that thing, and it was balls kind of anywhere. Alright, fine. The Iconics, I was shocked to be the new women's tag team champions. I honestly thought that they would have those belts on Sasha and Bayley a little bit longer to at least defend against the Sky Pirates at NXT, and they didn't. So why tease the NXT thing and not actually do it? That's a match I wanted to see. And considering there's no more automatic rematches, that's kind of... Wait, what? Roman, you idiot! What the hell? Now, I was a bit concerned when they put Kofi and Bryan in the middle of the show. By the end of the show, I understood why you had it in the middle of the show, but at the time, I was like, I'm a little bit concerned about that. But, this match, number one, Kofi won, which was the important thing you should have done with all of that build-up for that angle. Number two, someone at WWE Shop totally spoiled it before the matchup, or during the matchup, in the middle of the match. It got spoiled because they put up the shirt too early that Big E had in the box on the Shop. And it's like, oh man, someone's getting fired for that botch, right? And then also, they had the old belt on the podium, and I'm like, well, that's the same podium from the Battle Royals, so it's just that, right? But then they actually had it under the drape thing and had the Bryan's belt on top of it. So there was that. But yes, Kofi Mania, well deserved. We'll see how it builds from here, but I was super happy to see how that thing all played out, and super glad that Kofi got his moment at WrestleMania. Thrilled. Now then, while they did make a lot of good decisions at this Mania in terms of who should win and the stories you should have told, Roman Reigns. Number one, Roman Reigns got, way more pyro than anybody else. So he's still the chosen one. And Roman Reigns pretty much beat Drew, and that was the end of that. And I'm like, you had a better story you could have told here. Having Roman fight from underneath and lose at Mania, much like how Okada lost at the Dome to Jay White and then eventually got that win back, is a better story to tell. You could play up him not being 100%. Instead, it's Roman, he's back, y'all, he's super again, and he's just gonna win. And honestly, mixed reaction here, MetLife Stadium. Mixed reaction. You would think they've been cheering him on TV now since he came back from cancer, but it is the Tri-State area, and we still kind of don't like Roman that much. You know how it goes. Anyway, Elias. And we knew there was always somebody who's going to interrupt Elias. And here's your appearance of John Cena as the Doctor of Thugonomics, original John Cena. That was awesome, but no match here. Just kind of did some moves, and that was it. But the crowd loved it, and that's obviously, you want to have that WrestleMania moment, and that's awesome. But then you're like, oh wait, this means we're totally not going to see anything in shenanigans with Angle and Corbin, and you didn't, because Kurt Angle just lost to Baron Corbin, and that was that whole thing. And look, when you're retiring, when you're going out, you go out on your back. You go out looking up at the lights. That's what you do in the business. My problem is that was to Baron Corbin, and I kind of just don't care about Baron Corbin. So that was that. Now, speaking of retiring, this morning on Monday, Batista has announced his in-ring retirement after losing last night to Triple H at WrestleMania in the longest match of the night. I mean, come on. I get it, but it didn't need to be that long. It had some brutal spots in it, but it didn't need to be that long. Also, just one other note there on Shane and Miz. When Shane fell onto the golf cart and then bounced to the concrete, that was almost as sick as that PCO bump. Stop, Shane. You're old. Come on. Anyhow, main event was pretty good, but ended up with a roll-up victory. And you would have thought after all that build, you would have had a tap-out victory. But no, it was a roll-up. I heard that Ronda went into this match with a broken hand, so that may have had some kind of an impact on how that played out. But again, the right person won. I think a lot of folks were scared it was going to be Charlotte, but no, the right person won. Becky Lynch is now your Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion, and, you know, Pyro off the air. But again, they added a level of doubt there, that the pinfall did not look clean. It wasn't having a clean shoulders 1, 2, 3 pinfall. So you can have that argument afterwards with Ronda. And it still, in a way, protects Ronda, right? Because she didn't tap out. She lost on a roll-up, didn't tap out. But obviously, kind of a flat finish for your main event of WrestleMania. I think any WrestleMania main event that ends on a surprise roll-up is going to be a little bit suspect. But that was how it ended up going. I was surprised we didn't have Becky tapping out Charlotte, but that kind of was what it was. And that, for me, I've been sitting here for 40 minutes now, is my WrestleMania and G1 Supercard and Hall of Fame and NXT reactions. And I'm exhausted. It was a long day and a lot of hours wrestling. Thanks for watching. More videos on this channel just about every day. See you then. Tune in, and I'm out.